Good evening, gentlemen. Welcome back to the old computer shack. I don't have anything very exciting to show you this evening. Just boring ass C code. But I have started on the reimplementation now, even though I haven't quite gotten through the spells list yet. I've still got a few things down here at the bottom to do, but I'll get to them sometime. Anyway, I just wanted to share what I was working on here. I've got some data types defined. There's nothing, it compiles, but it doesn't really do anything yet, you know what I'm saying? So there's nothing really to show you, but I've got the dungeon data types defined. Some temporary macros that don't do any bounds checking, so this will, like, fuck up when you go out of bounds reading dungeon elements, the cells within the dungeon and stuff. But that's fine for now. I'll fix that later. I just wanted to get some shit working for the moment. What else do we have here? We have some wall definitions, just the existing walls right now, but we have an entire nibble to use for walls now instead of just 2 bits, so we can have a total of 15, well, 16, or 14, not counting the no wall, 14 different walls. And I've got this last one, all the bits set to 1 as invalid wall because that's necessary for some sanity checking elsewhere in the game engine. But I'll talk about that later sometime. And I've got the special features defined here. Instead of hard coding everything with just 15 of them, I've got room. Well, I guess they're stored as a byte, so technically there could be up to 255 of them. But the reality is, you'd never fit that much code on an 8-bit micro. So I've got entries in the jump table right now for 64 different special features. I only have the legacy ones defined at the moment, but that should work fine. I haven't written the handler routines for any of these yet, but the structure is there. If you get curious, you can look in the this SPC subdirectory and see kind of how it's going to work. There's like a handler function whenever you want to interact with the special feature that it calls, so we can have our code kind of modularized here, and it has a way to store data per instance of dungeon special feature too. So there's in the dungeon in the dungeon structure, there's this 1K data block that special features can store small amounts of data in. So like doors will be able to remember if they're opened or closed or locked. Stairs and stuff will be able to lead somewhere other than exactly the XY location on one level or the other, and stuff like that. It'll make us able to make things a little more interesting, I think. And additionally, since the special features are going into a list instead of wasting space in the wall array now, it's possible to have more than one dungeon special feature in a given dungeon cell. The way that'll process is like since they're in a list, they're ordered. So the one at the top of the stack will interact first, and its handler, like we talked about, returns a Boolean value telling whether the game engine should go on and let the player interact with the next special feature in the stack, or whether it should break out and go back to the movement routine. So, yeah, that's how that's going right now. I also, we're going to want to use a binary file format for the dungeons because that'll be a lot smaller and faster to load on small old computers, especially the 8 bits. And so that leads us to a little bit of a quandary. With all of this extension stuff that we're making room for but not actually implementing quite yet. We're just making a relative clone for the moment, then we'll extend it later. But with this possible extension going into the design here, it leaves us with this problem where like the binary data format could change later on for the dungeon files and stuff, and that'll make it a real pain in the ass to load them, because it's basically a packed little Indian struct written to disk. That's the fastest way to do it for old computers. It just loads it into RAM, sets a pointer to it. There you go. You know what I'm saying. So what I've done to try to alleviate that is made up a textual intermediate format that larger systems will be able to use. And the idea is, I've called them SMF files. That stands for Shitty Map Format. It's just all of the information in a textual format that's easy to parse but uglier than fuck. When the SMF parser reads these, it'll first set default values for everything in the binary data structure that it's reading into, and then it'll read all of this and fill in those elements in the binary structure, and then we'll be able to save that binary structure back to disk for the small systems that don't have the horsepower or memory to deal with all of this text parsing. And I think that'll make it a good bit easier to make the dungeon file format grow with the code being extended. And also, I got cross-compilation, however the fuck you want to pronounce it, set up. I'm currently building for both sizes of processor for Intel, Linux, and all three of the different architectures for the Raspberry Pi. And that's just using GCC's cross-compiler Deuteroo that Debian includes. So it would be fairly trivial to support other Linux systems like PowerPC and 68K and stuff like that. Although there probably isn't a whole lot of interest in stuff like that. I don't know. If there is, we can add it later. It's just a matter of editing the make file. And I also added a compilation directions document here in case any of you all want to get the source code and fuck around with it. The thing is, though, it'd be nice to be able to build this also for Windows and DOS, and I can probably get MinGW set up to cross-compile to Windows. But if we're going to build, I mean, there's DJGPP for DOS. We could generate DOS binaries with that, but they'll only run on a 386 or better. DJGPP actually generates code for a DOS extender, so it wouldn't be able to run on like 16-bit real mode machines like the 8086 through the 286. But for that, we could use OpenWatcom, which I've never used before. But it's open source, and there's a Linux version available, so presumably it could somehow be added to the build system here. It's just a GNU make build system. There's a master make file that calls make files in the rest of the build directories for the specific architecture. Or no, they're in the platform directory for the source code. And so I've got like one makefile for Linux that builds all of the different cross-compiled versions for Linux. And then if we wanted to add MinGW and OpenWatcom and shit like that, we'd have to have different platform entries for those. So if any of you guys are like excited or anything, like and want to send me patches for that shit, you know, I certainly wouldn't complain. But otherwise, I'll get to it eventually. Probably mess with OpenWatcom before Windows, because meh. But anyway, yeah, that's where things are going so far. Thanks for joining me again. I'll talk to you all later. Have a lovely evening.